I'm currently in my Victorian era, I guess, because for some reason I can't seem to wrap my head around contemporary writing and go straight. Constantly, I'm going straight back for more Gothic horror. Is this a cry for help? Do I need help? Hi, YouTube. How are you doing? It's me, Serial Eater. Anyways, I don't know when this happened, but I've taken a hard pivot in the things that I read, and honestly, I'm not sure. A few years ago, I used to be like a real hard fantasy girly. Like, I read popular books. Like, I read everything, like Sarah J. Maas and Leigh Bardugo, Holly Black, and I used to read like books like that. And now I'm sitting here and going back through them. I'm like, how did I do this? Because I read Crescent City recently and I freaking hated it. And I was like, how did I read this the first time? It's like a brick. And I just hate it now. And I'm like, ugh. I didn't read it all, but I did just read a little bit of it. I'm looking at my stacks of books and I'm probably gonna, yeah, donate most of them, if not all of them, that are not currently like my partner's textbooks that he used for teaching school. Like, he used to teach creative writing, and I might just unhaul everything that's not that or any of my horror books, because I've noticed that I found really interesting horror books recently. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is, in terms of horror, especially a couple years ago, I was pretty simple. I'd read like Stephen King, and I would venture to say that was it. Like, I don't even remember any of the horror books I would have read back then, maybe Black and Teeth. I was starting to think I just hated the horror literature genre as a whole, which is not true, because I was really just not looking in the right places. Because now that I'm doing this YouTube journey of enlightenment, I feel like as a younger version of me, I just wasn't looking in the right places. It brings me to the actual story that I'm going to be reviewing, which is Blood on Her Tongue by Joanna Von Veen, as you can see in the title. It was something I truly loved on a fundamental level. It's about a young woman named Lucy, whose twin sister, Sarah, has been losing her shit about a weird corpse she found in the bog. Lucy has a lot of trauma about insane asylums, so she's trying to keep Sarah from being carted off, and Sarah's just being real hungry and acting out. Because it's set in the Netherlands in 1887, there's a high chance of Sarah being carted off. Lucy is in this delicate conundrum of attempting to convince the men around her that Sarah is, one, that Sarah isn't crazy, and two, Lucy herself is also not crazy. Trying to convince everyone around you that you are not crazy is very difficult, especially when they already think you're crazy. So they're not going to listen. Because it's set in the 1800s, it has the vibes of like a high class society, because Sarah married into I would consider it a richer family, but they don't talk about how much money they earn. They live in a mansion and have lots of like people around them that will tell the reader that they're rich. So I assume this book is very good about kind of highlighting the differences between class and gender, especially because there's not a lot of characters in this, but the two men that are in this are very overbearing. It's written in a way where just them being around is ominous. There are a few chapter breaks that are letters or news articles or diary entries that are really well thought out and help characterize the world without it being, a lore dump or something like that. It is written very, very casually and in a way that is easy to read. It really sucks you in and immerses you in the world pretty well. I really believe that this book had a lot of solid pacing. Like, it never really got boring where I would just like want to put it down or anything. I just really liked the pacing of the book. There is one time that I put it down because I suddenly wanted to start a new project. It was like a spur of the moment, flash in the pan kind of project. And I was like, oh, I'll go do that. And then I was like, but I want to read my other book. Speaking of the flash in the pan project, this book very heavily reminded me of a light novel, manga, anime called Shiki by Fuyumi Ono, which is really hard to get your hands on. It's so weird. I tried so many things to get my hands on this so I could like refresh my memory about Shiki and try to see if I can make a better comparison. But I only scraped the surface level because the book is very, very dense and hard to find. If you want me to talk about it, please let me know in the comments below so I can actually do a full review of all of that, because I can do a full review, but it's just a lot and I didn't want to do it all at once when I was literally in the middle of another book. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, this book was so good that it unlocked a weird hyperfixation that I used to have in my past, which is Shiki. I think I've been having a problem censoring myself in terms of spoilers in these reviews. So honestly, if I assume that I'm going to spoil it from here on out. I read my script over again. Pretty sure I'm going to spoil it from here on out. So I'm going to put my timestamps. Here is the timestamp. Future me, put it here, please. And just because I want to speak more loosely about the things in this book, because I loved the content. And then I will give like my general review later. Okay, bye. Bye, people who don't want to see the spoilers. Anyways, so if you're here, you heeded my warning and said, hey, fuck it, I don't care about spoilers. Or, hey, fuck it, I don't have time to read a book right now, but I want to know more about this horror. Which is valid, because books are long and they take a long time to read. I would like you guys to read this book anyway. But if you don't have the time for it, I realize these days that I have been sitting down and actually like writing and like annotating my books and, you know, putting tabs down and analyzing them a lot more than I used to, which might be why I don't like those other fantasy novels. And there's a tangent I'm on. I know this, but hear me out. I think this book deserves a lot of sitting and observation that I'm sure that when I was in my fantasy girl era that I wouldn't have done. And I feel like now is the time to sit and actually read this book because it's worth that. There are points in this book which seem mundane, but it just builds the world in a different way. Lucy is so angry, where she would just go out in the forest and grab a stick and start like beating up the trees. And it's not like she's not like destroying them, it's just a stick. But it just, the description of being in the woods, just be angry and smack the trees with this stick, was so immersive that I feel like it's hard to get that down in writing, which Joanna Von Veen did very well. It's interesting to read the way that this character thinks. There's this thing that Lucy does where she will go through her mind and think of all the positive things about people while forgetting all the shitty stuff, and then she'll go back and go, I remember that shitty thing that person did. It's hard. It's interesting that she's also doing that for herself, because often she'll be like, well, I love this person and I would never betray them, while also being her sister's husband's mistress. Haha. Ew. There's also this thing that the author did, which was impressive to me, which is silly and small, but I think that it was very interesting, which is Arthur. Arthur is Lucy and Sarah's childhood friend, one of the two male characters that are constantly seeing. He's also the attending doctor to the two women. It was this weird thing that Arthur did where he would just not listen to whatever Lucy's saying. You wouldn't be able to see it superficially where he's just not listening to her, because it sounds like he's listening to her, because he'll be like, oh, calm down, it's okay, blah blah blah. But it's like Lucy was trying to open Sarah's coffin and she was like, I can hear scratching, and he was like, well, you know, that happens when you're upset, or that happens with corpses sometimes. There's something in there. But he would infantize her in a weird way and kind of circle around and explain away all of her problems, and she just wants him to listen, and he will not do that. The author circled back to it in the final scenes, and just he tries to do it again while she's losing her mind on everybody, and he's like, well, calm down, that's just, it is what it is. And it's like she's like really pissed, and it just was very satisfying to hear her go, no, you've never listened to me, you've never helped me, you're just treating me like I'm crazy constantly. And it's very satisfying to see the resolution of that whole thing. One of the things that also perplexed me with this book, because everywhere you go, you can look it up anywhere, and it will be tagged as vampire fiction. And I don't know about that. Because I wouldn't call it vampire fiction, because the monster that lived inside the bog woman was a parasite. It wasn't that Sarah wanted to feast on blood alone. It was like she wanted to eat flesh, like she was a zombie or something. That's why I brought it back to Shiki, and even like something like Tokyo Ghoul, where they wanted to eat meat and not just the blood. It didn't feel like only vampires. But I do really like this idea where the parasite just kind of assimilates into the person's world, where it's like, obviously it's the parasite that's in her brain, and then it retains like Sarah's memories, and it tries to be like the person it's assimilating into, but it was a very it's not exact. It's not an exact science for these parasites. The personality of the human is not completely carried over, and it's mentioned that the husband of the bog woman that Sarah found in the bog wasn't fully convinced that it was his wife, so he ended up getting the bog woman executed for being a shapeshifter. It's like, this book is very much like the woman's rage kind of book, where like if there's a woman lashing out at society, it's treating them like they're easily replaceable, and once you step out of line, there's no consequence to remove you. It felt like that. Like it was like a metaphor for life. Anyways, welcome back from the spoilers. And welcome back for people who skipped over the spoiler section, which is fine. Teehee. Please read the book. I do think that this book was extremely well written and very satisfying, even if the ending was slightly ambiguous. I know that was a complaint, that the ending was ambiguous. I think it was fine. There's rarely a happy ending in horror, and I felt like this ending was satisfying enough. I'm not sure where I'm getting all these bangers. I love this book. Maybe I'm just like I said before, like maybe I'm just looking in the right places, because now I'm finding things that I love. This is a 5 out of 5 star read for me. Hooray. Again, yay. There are some sapphic elements to the book, which I heavily appreciated. And I don't know, the writing was really great. And I ran out to get Joanna Von Veen's other book, which is My Dreadful Darling, which I probably will read in the short future. And I don't know. I'm just hooked on this author's writing style. I'm trying to make my partner read it too. Teehee. So, if you want to see more of me, I stream most weeknights on twitch.tv/serial eater VT. If you want a more in-depth schedule, that'll be on my card, which I just updated. Hooray! It's all linked in the description below. I am so scared of the books I have on on my shelves right now, because I feel like if they've been sitting here for years, I'm not gonna want to read them after the years they've just been sitting here collecting dust. I really need to go back through them and do something about that. Anyways, bye YouTube. Have a good day. Goodbye, goodbye.